by knowing how you guys got into acting in the first place and what led you to become involved with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
For me, it was, I went to an audition. I was a martial artist, and my instructor saw in the paper that they were looking for new rangers. It didn't say what, it was just new rangers, and I at first thought it was like maybe stunt guys. Yeah, I just basically went to a cattle call open audition and booked it, basically, after, a couple weeks. And yeah, then I was on this crazy show.
And you did a good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
For me, I moved to Los Angeles like so many people do to be an actor, and I saw an open casting call in something called Backstage West, and then it was called Phantoms when I was auditioning for it, and the character that I went in to read for was Victor, which then became Jason. So I had multiple callbacks. 3 for Victor. I realized I wasn't going to get the role, so I begged to read for the role of Billy. They told me I couldn't. They said, no, it's okay. We have all these guys over here. This is the look we're going for. You don't fit the look. And so I begged and pleaded, and they still said no. So the casting director said, you have to kind of make yourself look like these guys over here. So I wet my hair down and borrowed somebody's glasses and buttons. I borrowed somebody's shirt and buttoned it wrong, and came back in and said, please let me read for it. And then the producers were like, oh, okay, they could see it. So then I read for Billy. I had 5 more auditions for Billy, and I landed it. So I got lucky.
I love this story. It's awesome.
So, Johnny, you mentioned you had some martial arts background already.
Yes.
And these roles seem to be very physically active roles. So how much fight choreography did you have to learn? I'm sure you came into it already with a lot of knowledge.
Well, I mean, every episode had us doing stuff, some martial arts. And earlier on, it was you had to be a martial artist or a gymnast or a dancer. So you had to have some kind of physical ability, I guess. I don't know if they still, well, they might do it now. There's a while when they did, but for us, they didn't. And it was like every single, episode. And I wasn't like an actor first, I was a martial artist, so for me, acting was very scary. So I would always go, when are we doing the action stuff? Because that's when I felt comfortable, So yeah, we did quite a bit.
But wasn't you guys like your first episode? You were rollerblading. They had you guys doing some crazy
rollerblading, which I didn't know how to rollerblade. I was trying to learn that while they were setting up lights.
I don't remember what it was, but they were really putting you guys through the paces.
Yeah, they did. They did.
So, David, did you also have an athletic background that kind of went to this character?
No. Totally teasing you. No, I was a gymnast most of my life growing up. I was a competitive gymnast, so I had a gymnastics background coming into it, and so that obviously helped as well to get the role. But they didn't want Billy to fight. That was a real big deal, I guess, for our creator, Haim Saban. He was like, Billy cannot know how to fight. And so when we were first rehearsing for the show, once we did the original pilot and then we were getting ready to film the series, there was like a month where we were rehearsing scripts, so we were working on our acting, and we were working on fight scenes, and I remember working with the stunt coordinator, we were working all this stuff out, and then the executives came in to see what we were doing after a certain amount of weeks, and I did my thing, and Mr. Saban flipped the gasket, and he was yelling in Hebrew at the stunt coordinator, and so I was terrified, like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. And so from that point, I understood they didn't want Billy to know how to fight, that he needed to be awkward. And so, I kind of played into that, but it was a little frustrating for me as an actor because I wanted Billy to be able to be smart and be a nerd, but yet be physical. So over the course of my 200 episodes, I made sure that Billy gradually kind of grew, and they started allowing more and more of that kind of stuff. So
nice. So how much of yourselves and your own personalities did you pump into your characters at the time?
Well, I think probably because I wasn't much of an actor to begin with, they were just like, well, you're just going to be a quiet, shy guy. I called myself the background ranger. Because, you know, you'd have Tommy and Kimberly in the front, and then you'd have me. And I did that for a lot of episodes. But I had a good time. It's fun.
I mean, I wouldn't say that Billy and I are a lot alike, maybe more so now, but I mean, I certainly was not a smart person like the character that I played, and I didn't understand half the lines I was saying. I would have to sit in my dressing room and look words up in the dictionary and be like, oh my God, am I pronouncing it right? All that kind of stuff, and then trying to make it sound normal. So, but you know, I'm really thankful to have gotten to play Billy because certainly made me a smarter person, and I learned words that I would never have said before, like a fully sentient, multifunctional automaton.
That's so easy for you to say
It
now.
rolls off the tongue.
Well, after 200 episodes. So,
Do
at
you
that
ever, sorry,
time,
do you ever say like affirmative ever?
Like in real life?
Yeah.
No.
Do you ever say something like that though, and be like, wow, that's a Billy?
No, but I mean, I use big words sometimes, and I know in my head, I'm like, I would never really use that unless I hadn't played Billy, so yeah.
did you know at the time that the show you were part of would become so wildly and internationally popular for such a long time?
It was a popular show. I knew it was a show on TV, so I knew it's got to be more than anything I've ever done. So I didn't know how popular it was until I was on the show. And then it was like after we would finish shooting, there would just be kids out there, you know, behind the tape at Castaic. And so it was, you know, and then we lived, I'm not sure where you lived, but I lived where I worked. So everywhere I went, there was like people, oh, Ranger guy. I'm like, yeah. And it was weird. It was cool, you know. I mean, I loved it. It was awesome. I remember a time like afterwards at Castaic, right after we finished shooting a scene. There's a bunch of kids over there, and a few of you guys went over signing autographs. I was like, oh, I guess that's what we do. We go sign autographs. And I go over there, and they're like, Zach. And I'm like, hey. And I signed them all as Zach. Because I didn't want to break some kid's heart.
I mean, I don't think there was a way that anybody could have predicted how famous the show would become, like on such a global level. It was pretty insane. I remember when we first started doing season 1, you know, we filmed 40 episodes before it even really started airing, so we had no way to gauge what was going to happen, and then as soon as it aired, I mean, we shot to #1 all over the place, and you know, the producers would be like, you guys are #1, you guys are #1, but that doesn't really register in your head as to what it means. But then that Christmas, your poor parents were beating each other up, trying to get the toys, and I think when that first Christmas came around, we kind of started getting a glimpse of what was going on, and then the original cast, we had a big to-do at Universal Studios in Hollywood, and they said, you know, you guys, you're just going to come and you're going to do like one little, you know, little live show at the American Tail Theater, which is probably a theater the size of this. It's an outdoor theater, and so we had to be there really early, like at 6:30 in the morning to do rehearsals, and then like at 8 o'clock, they were like, okay, well, we're gonna have to move you to this other stage because, you know, we're getting more people than we thought. And then a half hour later, by 9 o'clock, they're like, we've had to close Universal Studios because there's too many people trying to come to see you guys. So they moved us to the biggest, the Universal Amphitheater, which seats like 7,000 people. We ended up doing 6 or 7 shows that day. We closed down the freeway 8 miles in each direction in Los Angeles, which is unheard of. And they closed, I can't believe they closed Universal Studios because they were at capacity by 9 a.m. So that day, for the original cast at least, we were like, wow, I guess this is bigger than we can really even comprehend. And the fact that we are here 30 years later, almost, really is a testament to the show. And, you know, for me, and I'm sure for Johnny too, it's so humbling because I don't think when we were doing the show that we could ever predicted that our characters would have the kind of influence that it's had on people. And they're like, oh my gosh, you know, I became a doctor or a scientist or a martial artist because of you. I'm in law enforcement, I'm in the army because of you. So it's really, you know, I take it all to heart for sure.
It's beautiful. I think we have a question up there.
Oh, well, I got a lot of questions actually. I narrowed it down to just one. For now. But David, question for you. You have, if I'm not mistaken, said in the past you'd be open to returning for a season if they, you know, did it in a way that would make sense for Billy as a character. Do you have any examples of what, you know, that you think would be a successful way for Billy to return?
I mean, I have said that, yes. No, I mean, I've just always said, you know, I've been asked to come back for these reunion episodes that they do, and it just, for me, I'm a union actor, and it just doesn't make sense for me to break ties with my union to go back and do one episode and say 5 lines. I'll get fined, it becomes more difficult to get back into my union and all that kind of stuff. So for me to actually go back to the show, it really has to make sense, and the season kind of makes sense. And, you know, I think Billy, for me, anyways, the way that I see my character, he's been in space, you know, traveling the universe and finding all kinds of cool stuff, and he might even have a team of his own rangers. But I would want him to come back in some capacity to be a mentor, a Zordon-like figure to a group, maybe. I mean, that's one way. But there's many ways that he could come back. But just, you know, to be like the dad, the fun uncle, you know, something like that.
So, do you guys ever rewatch yourselves in those episodes now, and how do you feel about it when you do?
Nope.
No.
No. Do you?
Well, for 27 years I didn't, but recently over the pandemic, you know, I was kind of bored, so I went back and watched almost all the episodes that I was in. In like 3 years, 200 episodes worth, and the feature film. I mean, the feature, I don't know if it's still on HBO, but at least last month I think it was on HBO, and I'm an insomniac, so one night I turned on HBO and I was like, it says Power Rangers the movie. So I sat there and watched it for 2 hours.
That's incredible. So are there any moments throughout your time working with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that really stick out to you? Any memorable, whether it was episodes that you shot or behind the scenes stuff that happened?
Johnny has a lot.
We don't need to tell all those stories. A lot of moments, I guess. You know what? I think I've always wanted to be on, like, do martial arts on television, maybe be an action star. And so that was always my dream. But I was from Texas, and it was just not a thing that happened to guys like me. And all my friends would tell me that while I'm trying to do that kind of thing. Not in a bad way, they're just, you know, just don't want to
It's just
be sad.
well,
Right. Yeah, it's like, hey, maybe you should think about another job. But I always wanted to, you know, it was just kind of my passion. And there's really not until I had this opportunity and eventually was on the show. But it didn't really sink in until I feel like we were like a week or 2 into it, because we worked so much. And every day was like a 14, 16-hour day, and you come home and you just crash. And so there's no time for it to ever really go like, hey, I'm here doing it. Until that rollerblading episode, when I was like trying to teach myself how to do rollerblades. And we're at this field, or this park called Cascade, and it was early in the morning, and the crew is setting up lights and cameras and whatever, and the sun's barely starting to come up. There's dew on the grass, and I, you know, try to rollerblade around, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm doing exactly what I always wanted to do. And then all of those, like all the voices in my head are people telling me, you can't do it, you won't do it, it's impossible, people like us. And I'm like, no, it is possible. Anything's possible. And so, yeah, at that moment, it just hit me so hard. And it was like, I had this like moment by myself, like, oh, this dreams do come true. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that does deserve a round of applause.
I almost died, got in a car crash, and then David let me use his Jeep for a while. And then it was like, this is the only time ever in LA where it was pouring so much. I thought, I mean, and I didn't drive stick shift, which it was stick shift, and everywhere I had to go was like uphill or downhill. And I remember.
Did I have to teach you how to?
You did. You had to teach me. That's how I learned. But then it was like pouring this one day, and I remember having to go somewhere. I felt like we had to go somewhere else for set or ADR or something. And I remember driving there and thinking, this is the day I'm gonna die, because it was pouring so bad. I was going up these hills in downtown LA, and it was like the car was rolling. There's a car right behind me, and I'm like screaming, like, "Don't get so close to me! I don't know how to do this!" It's like, you know. But I made it. I lived.
That would have been a good episode of Turbo.
Actually, it would have been, wouldn't it? The van, the stick shift. Zordon, why'd you give me a stick shift?
I was waiting for you to confess, like after 20-some years, you're going to say, like, David and I wrecked your car. I just didn't tell you. So you didn't wreck the car?
I didn't wreck it.
You didn't hit it on anything?
Nothing
You
at
didn't
all.
drive it over a rock and say he'll never know?
Not at all, no. It was good, but that was the day where I was like, I need to get another car. Because I can't keep doing this, because I am definitely going to die in this thing.
What about for you? Any moments that stick out in particular?
Any moments from Power Rangers?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole experience in so many ways was obviously, I always use the word humbling because it's very humbling when I'm able to look back on it. But so many things, like Johnny says, you know, the fact that I moved to Los Angeles to be an actor, I got Power Rangers within my first 3 months of being there. So I didn't really have to suffer like so many actors have to suffer. I mean, I was working as a room service waiter, doing the graveyard shift, so that really sucked. So I was really happy to get Power Rangers, and even in the midst of all that, you know, people were like, you know, people in LA are like, don't get too locked into it. People get pilots all the time, it never goes anywhere. Always that down talk that you hear. But you know, and so I remember the first day when we shot the original pilot, showing up to set, they called me Mr. Yost. They were like, this is your trailer, even though I shared it with Austin and Walter. They're like, here's your trailer, and we're gonna take you to the wardrobe, we're gonna take you to makeup, and you have to go to set, and we're gonna rehearse, and then you gotta get camera ready, and we're gonna come back, and like, I just remember that whole first experience just be like, wow, this is my dream. I've always wanted to be an actor, and it's coming to fruition. So, you know, the original pilot was so magical for me, and it was so grueling. I mean, those were 17-hour days for sure. We didn't really even understand what we were filming, but we were doing our best, and obviously it turned out for the better. And then just, you know, the whole thing, like what I'm talking about, how, we shot the whole first season, not understanding what was going to happen, and then again, it just became an overnight success, not just in the USA, but around the world. It's so insane to me that we get to travel to so many different places in the world, and that there's fans in India, in Russia even. I keep having people from Russia contact me now, which I was like, how do they have Power Rangers? It's so humbling in so many ways. So I mean, just this, getting to come here and be with you guys is so awesome, and the fact that you guys are what I like to call die-hard fans, I'm so appreciative of you guys, because without you, we wouldn't be who we are, and so we owe everything to you. So yes, clap for yourselves, please.
Well, we've got a lot of questions lined up. We've got about 10 to 15 minutes left, so we'll try to go through them as quickly as possible.
Is there anything that you would change about your characters personality-wise?
I'm sorry, I had
Anything we would change regarding our characters' personalities? I don't think I would. I think if I could go back, though, I would play a lot of things differently. But that's just because I have more knowledge now as an actor. I think for me, and I'm sure it's the same for him, I get very specific people that come and talk to me. People that are, are either picked on or shy or quiet. So I get a lot of those people who come to me, and I don't know. I just have this instant connection with them, And so I wouldn't change a thing about that. I love that. I somebody just in a thing where they were suicidal and all that. And I was at that place too when I was younger, so I understand that. So I'm just grateful to be kind of part of somebody's life in some small way.
Yeah, I mean, I do regret doing one thing as Billy, or as David the actor playing Billy. But overall, again, you saw my character progress and grow over the series, but I think the thing that bothers me the most, or that I've never said this, so, but I regret that I let Billy take his glasses off. And that was my choice as an actor. And you know, I hear a lot of people that wear glasses sort of say, I really wish Billy would have kept his glasses. And so, you know, I regret as an actor that I really pushed to get the glasses off. So that was my mistake.
Thank you.
This is kind of an out there question for like martial arts styles nerds like myself, but I've noticed in some of the earlier seasons like going up to Zio, there would be episodes like we're going to explore Kung Fu, we're going to do different kind of martial arts. We didn't see more of those episodes where it was like a tournament or a class and they just mixed Korean language with the Japanese art and just throw belts on for people doing Kung Fu. So I know the practitioners yourselves would be more open to saying this is how we really perform the art, but were the folks behind the show a little more sensitive to the different types of the styles, and they like just throw it together because it's karate, no one's going to know the difference?
Yeah, I think, well, the stunt guys and the action team, they knew the difference, and you know, some of us, we knew the difference, but the producers don't care. You know, to them, karate is everything, you know, so yeah, certainly. I mean, I see that even, was it Iron Fist? I was watching Iron Fist, and then I'm like, all their belts are tied wrong. You know? I'm like, those guys aren't martial artists. But, you know, that's what us martial artists can see, but most people don't see that, you know. And also, it's a kid's show, so they're probably just like, well, what are kids gonna know, you know? Did you know it at the time, or was it something you went back and you watched and you're like, wait a second? Right?
Thank you.
Okay, so question for Johnny. You're also a voice actor. How much do you think Power Rangers helped you get into your voice acting roles?
That's interesting. I don't know that it did. Well, actually, I guess maybe in some way, they really the reason why I am a voice actor is partly because of this guy.
Well, yeah, but not really.
But I mean, I had to do my part. But you were instrumental in bringing Trigon over, making that a thing. And that was my first anime role. And so, yeah, I mean, of course, I went to an audition, but if he hadn't been part of that, then maybe that wouldn't have ever come over here. And that was like an early anime, you know, that was before it was like a thing here. And it was just barely starting to take off. And so I was very fortunate to be able to do that role that then led to many other opportunities for me as a voice actor.
Still one of my favorite anime shows too is Trigon by far.
Hey, can we get a season 2?
I don't have any power over it anymore, I'm sorry. I don't have any power over it.
Come on!
I don't even like those people.
This is an interesting question. What's probably your favorite episodes with Trini? When you guys worked together, what was your favorite bonding experience with her on the original series?
With Trini? Yeah, to be Trini. I mean, she was just an amazing woman. I have to call her a woman now. I was going to say girl. But you know, she was just so much fun to work with. She had such a great laugh. And again, for me, the whole first season was really, really a magical experience, I think, for everybody in the original cast, because we went through so much together, bonding-wise, auditioning, and, you know, when Twee came into the picture, she was like, instantly we had chemistry with her, so she was by far the right pick. And we just got to do so much together and ride the wave of fame, I guess, together. But there's one episode that I think back on with Twee that always makes me laugh. And Billy is up on the top of a hill, and he's putties are like, trying to beat him up, whatever, and he's like gonna fall off a hill, and Trini's yelling, "Billy, you're way too high! You're way too high!" And I don't know why, but everybody in the crew just thought that was funny because it sounds like she's saying, "Billy, you're high." You're smoking joints. And so all day we were just laughing about that every time she said that line. And so I think they finally changed it to, "Billy, you're way too high up."
Yeah.
And so that's the line now. But I remember just filming that, and just like nobody for some reason could get through that scene. And one other one. This is kind of gross, but so there was Trini had an Uncle Howard, and we were filming with this poor guy. He's a very nice actor, but he couldn't remember his lines to save his life. So and they weren't difficult lines, and everybody was like getting so angry because just say your line. He would screw it up every take. And so finally, our DP, who's this amazing older Israeli gentleman, is behind the camera, and he laughed so hard that he farted. So, and that just made everybody laugh. So those are some of my memories of tweeting.
Right, we've got time for 2 more questions, but unfortunately, I'm sorry, we won't have an opportunity to get to you guys. But they will be at some booths in the Celebrity Hall, and we'll have some photo opportunities. But go ahead.
So you were talking earlier about how you've inspired millions of children across the world, including me. I joined the Army because I wanted to.
Thank you for your service.
But going back, throwing that back at you, who were your heroes when you were growing up? Whether they were actually in your life or even on TV or wherever.
For me, the Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee, Sammo Hung, I would watch all kinds of kung fu theater. That's why I wanted to do martial arts on TV. I was like, man, those guys get to flip around and do cool stuff. That's what I want to do. So I used to make just these lame videos with my friends of just these ridiculous fight scenes or whatever before getting on the Power Rangers. So there's a couple of them.
Darth Vader. Really? Oh yeah.
All right.
Hey, question for Johnny. So I know that you're also in a band. What are your musical influences? Like, what are your favorite bands?
I listen to everything. I don't know that I really have a favorite band. I think, my band now is Where Giants Fall. It was Oxshine. It's basically the same band, we just changed our name. Because I grew up, and I wanted to play something a little different. Like when you first start, everything sounds cool, and you play 4 chords, and that was like a song Sunday Flowers, a song everybody wanted us to play forever, no matter how many albums. And we had over 200 songs. They always wanted us to play that song, and I was like, I don't want to play that song anymore. So I changed my name, and then changed our style. But I don't really. I like all music, a lot of soundtrack and score and things like that. And you might be able to hear a hint of that in our new stuff, which I have a couple CDs at my table. Not a lot.
We actually have time for one more question, so you're lucky.
Okay, hypothetical scenario, regardless of contracts and unions, and you do get a part in the upcoming season, but the director says, choose which color you want to be. What color do you pick?
You talking to me?
Yeah, both of you.
I will always choose blue no matter what.
Okay, what about you?
Well, you've been a few colors, huh?
Black and green. I'd be fine with black again. But I guess in this hypothetical world, it depends on what's the series, what is it about, because maybe there's, I don't know. Like, I don't really want to come back and lead a group. I don't need to do that.
Council Bluffs.
That's me, yeah.
Omaha. So
Right across the room.
Second question, does Runza mean anything to you?
What?
Runza.
Runza?
Yeah, I guess that's how long you've been out of. That was just a restaurant back home.
Oh, sorry. It's been a while.
Second off, I remember at the end of every Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you guys used to do kind
kind of like a sidebar at the end of credits, you would.
And now, a message from the Power Rangers.
Yes. So, and I remember you did a lot of them. If I
Me?
Well, I think so.
I mean, we did our fair share. That was in the whole Canadian controversy where Canada was banning Power Rangers because they thought we were too violent, and it started trickling into the U.S. So we had to kind of combat it with public service announcements.
That was my follow-up. What inspired me?
All right, and our last question.
I have a quick question. So, do you guys have a favorite villain for the seasons that you worked on, or the movie? Favorite villain?
Well, I like the putties. They were my favorite. But then I think I would go with Lord Zed and Goldar, maybe.
And you know, for me, I mean, they're all iconic to me, but I love Ivan Ooze from the movie. Paul Freeman, the actor that played Ivan Ooze.
Like a real actor.
He's like a legit, he was from the UK, and so anybody from the UK is like legitimately an actor, just based on the accent. But he was, I mean, he knocked it out of the park. I mean, I remember the first scene we shot with him, I was like, oh shit, we better, sorry. Oh shucks, we better get our stuff together. I just ruined so many people, I'm sorry. It's not the way you're supposed to end.
I think that's a fantastic.
Power Rangers don't cuss. Power Rangers don't cuss. I really am. I'm really sorry to all the parents.
Thank you both so much for being here. It's been a delight talking with you. Please give them one last.
Thank you.